Social media is now being flooded with so many tributes to Pope Francis that it's actually hard to find a post about Elon Musk. So either the Pope has reached heaven or hell has frozen over. And since the Minnesota Vikings didn't just win a Super Bowl, I'm going with the former. Even Trump got in on the act, managing to post two different, absolutely tone-deaf posts, and the last one is stunning. I already covered the first one, so who am I to let the second one go by unnoticed? On a day where you can't roll scroll and not hit a touching story about Francis, it's hard to pick out some of the top moments of Francis's papacy. Biden called Francis the people's pope, and he was very much that because Francis showed us how to respond deeply to others. He was human, though, and some of his most human moments were caught live on media, like when this woman grabbed at him. But the Pope was at his best with children. Who can forget this absolute tearjerker when a young boy whose atheist father had just passed away was comforted by the Pope? He was too overwhelmed to ask about his father, so the Pope had them bring him up on stage, and Francis held him and talked to him, and then went on to tell the audience why the boy was so overwhelmed. I'm going to translate the Pope's response. Emanuele told me that a short time ago his father died. He was an atheist, but he had all 4 of his children baptized. He was a good man. Emanuele has the doubt that his dad, not being a believer, could not go to heaven. It is God who decides who goes to heaven. But how is God's heart in front of a father like that? What do you think? A dad's heart. God has a dad's heart. And in front of a dad who, even if not a believer, has been able to baptize his children and pass them his goodness. Do you think that God could leave him far from him? Does God abandon his children if they are good? Here, Emanuele, this is the answer. Surely God was proud of your father because it is easier to baptize children when you believe in God than when you do not believe in God. And God loved this for sure. And this is why people loved Francis so much. Not only was he compassionate and caring, reaching out to anyone in pain, but his responses were profound. This is Francis off the cuff. No script writers, no focus groups, but a theology of heart and soul. And there's this moment on his visit to America when a young Mexican immigrant girl broke through the crowd and the Pope had security bring her to him. Francis recognized immediately that a brown girl in that crowd was most likely an immigrant, and he wanted to reinforce a core gospel value: welcome the stranger. And he did. And so, as the world prepares to mourn and say goodbye to Francis, Donald Trump made sure that everyone knew he would be the mourner-in-chief, posting this on social media. Melania and I will be going to the funeral of Pope Francis in Rome. We look forward to being there. Joe Biden stepped on a debate stage having just recovered from the flu, and everyone ran out with their hair on fire. But Trump being a moron is just, well, same old, just Trump being Trump. Side note, trashing the stock market is also just Trump being Trump. So why did people vote for him? Oh yeah, egg prices. Right. Well, and sure, racism, but let's not get bogged down in details, shall we? It is pretty nice of Trump to point out that the funeral will be in Rome. Thanks for clearing up that detail. I'm sure many people in the world were confused as to whether the funeral is going to be in Avignon, France, or Vatican City, which, by the way, is not Rome. I mean, the legacy of that two popes thing, am I right? And then Trump is looking forward to it? Why? Does he somehow think he's going to be the center of attention? Is he anticipating a throng of reporters rushing up to him? Because I have news for Trump. The international Catholic press is not enamored of him, and they will not be asking softball questions. Or is it that Trump thinks he's going to have the final word? Because I have news for Trump. The Pope's wisdom is going to have the final word. A man filled with love and totally in touch with the common man. The Pope said this about prayer. He told an interviewer that once he fell asleep during prayer, and the interviewer asked him whether that was allowed. Francis said that fathers always love it when their children fall asleep in their arms. But Francis wasn't always just about theoretical theology. Born and raised in Latin America, he knew his liberation theology. Here's the Pope speaking about the trickle-down economics that Trump and Vance love so dearly. The promise was that when the glass was full, it would overflow, benefiting the poor. But what happens instead is that when the glass is full, it magically gets bigger. Nothing ever gets to the poor. But if ever there was a Francis quote that reporters should direct back at Trump, it's this. There is only one time, the only time, that we are allowed to look down upon others is when we are offering to help them get back up. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.